Hey everyone, another beautiful day here. It's in the afternoon. I spoke at a gala. When was it? It was 2 nights ago, and the topic it was for a nonprofit, and the topic was learning how to die is learning how to live. In other words, when you're faced with your own mortality, there's a certain perspective that comes in that process that I believe is actually beneficial. And I cited a book that was done in like 1997 called Tuesdays with Maury, which was about a college professor, Maury Schwartz, who was passing, and his college student, Mitch Albom, wrote a book about he was passing with ALS, and it was a 2 year process of him passing. He was like 78 years of age, something like that. And anyway, Maury came out with these points that he said about perspectives on life when you're facing your own demise, and things like forgiving quickly and not worrying about the stuff, right? And loving well, things like that. And so I took it, since I'm a Christ follower, I took it from a Christ perspective as far as how it impacts my life. But I had to sort of outline those times that I believed that I was going to pass, because here I am right now. And that's sort of the miracle aspect of my story, because in 2015 I was diagnosed with high grade metastatic urothelial cancer, which at the time had a 5% survival rate for about a year and a half. And how I was diagnosed was I was down at Lenox Hill Hospital in Manhattan. Sloan Kettering couldn't handle my case surgically anymore, so I ended up with a surgeon who specialized in these fine urinary issues, and he had 3 surgeons working on me. One surgeon was really primarily breaking apart the sutures, the scar tissue, and then he and the other surgeon were, what we found out, we thought was going to be another revision of my urinary system, 14-inch incision, revise again my neobladder ureters. Turned out to be a cancer bonanza, where they were cutting tumors away from my aorta. There were tumors all in the ureters. There were tumors outside the area. So it turned out to be much worse than what they thought. In fact, my surgeon, when I woke up, it was like 10 hours. When I woke up, he said there was 50 years of experience between the 3 surgeons, and at one point they looked up and said to each other, "What do we do next?" And next to my pillow was plumbing drawings by permanent marker, where they were trying to strategize on how to do this system, because it was changing so much. And he said he wrote a letter eventually to my insurance that said it was the most extensive surgery done in urology at that point. But that was 2015. Sloan Kettering had advised him to tell me to go home and call hospice because of the track record, the data of what the prognosis was for that kind of a diagnosis. So I went home, but I didn't stop work. I kept working, and I knew something was wrong. I mean, he had taken out tumors, but there was still a lot of cell growth going on, and I couldn't get anyone to treat me with chemotherapy, Yale, Sloan, Lenox Hill, because there was no visible cancer that they could see. Back then there wasn't any kind of a marker test, so they couldn't see the cancer on the images, so they didn't treat me. And it turns out, the cisplatin, carboplatin chemotherapies that they had for this cancer was like their only weapon, and they were highly toxic and ineffective. So anyway, I then, about a year and a half later, and I'll talk about this in future episodes, I ended up at Phelps Hospital, where my surgeon was housed, and stuff was going on in my urine, and so that he found a tennis ball sized tumor in my neobladder, and Sloan had only seen that 3 times, my Sloan doctor, in his long career. So it looked really dire. He said, "Okay, quit work, go home, get your affairs in order, call hospice." I had an insurance policy that I wanted to pull some money out of, and my oncologist and surgeon had to sign that I wouldn't live longer than a year, and they did sign it. So I want to just in this really future episodes talk about the perspective one gets when, at least me, when I was faced with my own mortality, and so I'm going to go through some of that. And obviously, here I am. My doctor presents my case around the world, and he says Peter's 9 years post hospice. So obviously, there was some intervention done medically, but I believe it's a God thing that I'm here today. All my other acquaintances and friends who had the same diagnosis are not here right now. So anyway, one of those perspectives that I'll give you is an invitation to be vulnerable, an invitation to process fear, anger, and sadness. I did that with God. I was upset and angry with God, and I processed a lot. And I'll talk about that in future episodes. And I was vulnerable with myself and with others. I had been an emotion stuffer my whole life, but I allowed myself to feel. I got involved in a program called Emotionally Healthy Spirituality that helped me to process feelings rather than try to stuff them. Their premise was that stuffed emotions don't die, they get buried alive, and that's not healthy. Anyway, so that's what we have to look forward to. It's a good story, and it's one that I talk about a lot, so I hope you all are well. Thanks for listening. Bye.